Hi everyone, I'm back at SportsPro Live this afternoon with Aarti Dabas, who's the Chief Media Officer at Formula E. So hi Aarti, great for you to join us. Want to talk a little bit about really your approach to the media side of things. That's obviously your remit, but every sports property these days seems to have a really complex framework to play with. There's a lot of different factors. How are you looking at your approach to media? Because it seems that we spend a lot of time in this industry, and us included, talking about some of the big, massive American businesses that they play a different ball game. It's a different game completely. What's your approach?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Great to be back here after last year, and I can see it's fuller, so fantastic. I think it's, I can't say there's a magic pill. And having worked in a big sport like cricket, which clearly was, targeted audience in South Asia, but still big audiences, and coming to a sport that is trying to fill the fan base, you look at media completely differently. And I think the one change, I think sports federations and sports have to also change to the media landscape. So you can't just say you go this way. I would say, at Formula E, our strategy 3 years ago, when I joined, there was a lot of leakage of rights and value. We were all over, which was we're a new sport, let's just get it out. But then we didn't get broadcasters invested, so we consolidated. But I think too much consolidation is also not good. It's not speaking from a new sports perspective, but I think if you look at the future, you see a lot of these big platforms coming together, Warner Brothers Discovery, this consolidation, sport, entertainment. But I do hope that the big sports, especially the big sports who comfortably sit on a huge fan base, realize that they have to try different experiences for fans. And even broadcasters, hopefully they're maturing enough that exclusivity doesn't mean just grab everything and sit on it. I think complementary approaches can help. So I would say it's consolidation, but consolidation with the fan focus.
Yeah, so consolidation makes it easy for fans to find and know where to go to watch the live races in particular. Obviously you have that tension when looking at your media approach on when to go free to air, when to look at pay TV relationships, when to look at linear versus streaming. And it seems there's a bit of a formula in the industry. There's a little bit of free to air, there's a little bit of pay, and then there's an OTT approach. How are you looking? Is that a similar approach to what you're looking at, or is it a bit different?
I think it really depends what problem the sport is trying to solve and the business model. And it's a good time because we are in the midst of our new rights cycle now. This is our last season with most of our broadcasters. And in 3 years, lots has changed. It's amazing. And that's another reason we don't do long-term cycles as a sport. We want to change and we want those clean cycles. If you want to do a global deal, we can. I think the free-to-air, pay, OTT mix, everybody's using free-to-air for a different reason. Now, cricket, the sport I used to work for, is using it for a different reason, because they feel like there's a lot of criticism, there's a lot of public pressure about it, but it also helps build the sport. For us, free-to-air is important because we are a sponsorship-led business right now, and that reach that free-to-air provides is really critical. But I think we have to slowly find how do we transition into those sports-specific platforms, sports or entertainment, because those are the people who invest in the sport. Not to say free-to-air doesn't, but you see the Skies of the world, or even what Warner Brothers Discovery is doing. But in Germany, we have a great example. We have a commercial free-to-air broadcaster, but that's a sports broadcaster invested. So I think it's not a simple solution, and I just find it really fascinating. Even yesterday I was having a discussion internally with our board about it's not reach versus revenue. It's actually about what is the right revenue model and what are you going for in your sport? Because your fan proposition relies on that then.
Do you look at that, and I completely agree with that model, and I think that makes a lot of sense, but the mix on direct-to-consumer, is that mature enough yet to really move the needle with what you're talking about, that revenue model, where the two core components are sponsorship and broadcasting, still for the majority of industry, they are the core players. Are you seeing that there is a real opportunity now to create that direct-to-consumer relationship to monetize that, or is it still more about audience data and wider awareness still?
I think for us, I get a lot of requests, and rightly so, from companies talking about build your own OTT product. We're not going to build our own OTT product. We'll be serving 0.1% of the fan base, really, avid fans, because we are still the top level. The funnel down is not mature enough, and we are working on it. I think the thing about OTT platforms, we've just seen with the Apple MLS deal, which is more than just a media deal, it's a sponsorship deal as well. There's lots to it than just what meets the eye. But I think if you enter in a deal with a streaming platform, it has to be a long-term deal where you can see the sport grow, which is interesting even for them. They're investing so much. And you don't call Apple a streaming platform. I mean, they'll probably snap up a few more companies, 2 billion handsets, where they are right now, but they can transition it. The challenge right now for partnerships-led businesses are how much data are you getting from digital platforms and how much can you tell your brands that this digital platform is delivering. Linear is still, although I'm not saying linear measurements are great, but they still, what the cumulative, 1 minute reach, 3 minute reach. And that's a challenge. But I don't think it's a challenge for the sport, it's how you measure, and that has to change.
So we've been touching a little bit on this theme already, but let's talk about change a little bit. How do you think the sports industry does need to change? Let's look at through the media lens in particular. What are some of those things that you think at an industry level needs to happen?
I think it comes back to what I said at the start. When I was at the ICC, it was in 2014, we carved out some clip rights from the live and all the broadcasters went up in arms against me and saying this is not going to work. It was 2 minutes per hour of live content. And in the end, that's become a norm now, because I'm not saying I was but I think the whole point was we realized that where the clips do well, the live platform does well. Because we all know, even, I don't know, you and I, even I don't, nobody watches sport, they have another device. If there's another device, so I would really like the industry, and I think it's changing, especially traditional broadcasters and sports, to think about exclusivity as a complementary thing. You have your exclusive windows, but you don't have to own the whole live space, so you need to try different platforms, and they all serve different purposes. They can bring different segments of fans into the sport, because if you just rely on one, I don't think you can grow an audience that way. You're maybe down the funnel creating more avid fans, but you need different platforms. So again, it's back to consolidation, but within exclusive windows,
And that's at an industry level, but flipping the conversation a little bit, what are some of the barriers for that change? I mean, you're in the heart of all that conversation from your own sports properties lens. How difficult is it to inflict change, or to inflict change is not quite the right word, but to drive change at a sports industry level, to do some of those things you've just talked about?
I mean, as a tier 1 sport, I think you can get away with a lot of things, in the sense, because there's that market competition. Ultimately, market competition determines this. To change habits, you need market competition. And we've seen the big changes that have been driven by market competition for that sport, whether there's new players coming in. And I look at India also with cricket now, you've got new players coming in, and that's changed the landscape, right? It wouldn't happen if that wouldn't have happened. So I think market competition is really important, the demand for your product. But I think for sports that are not tier 1, you have a real opportunity to work with the broadcast partners, media partners, or content partners, because they can grow with you. So I think what you actually work with them is not here's an existing audience, do this. It's how can you grow together? And largely the new sports coming in are attracting younger audience like Formula E does. So we are giving something to the broadcaster. So we have to work with them, to take them away from giving everything to you exclusively. Can we have TikTok here? Can we do something with Snap here? Can we do something with Twitch for this? And I think they're seeing that because they want to bring in new audiences as well.
It definitely seems like the relationship between the broadcasters and the platforms and the rights holders is evolving, and it needs to evolve pretty quickly to be really fit for purpose in the current sports economy we live in. But look, that is all we've got time for. A big thank you to Aarti for joining us.
Great, thank you, Nick.